Hey guys, doing another video here. So this time I'm going to be talking about USB and Firewire interfaces. And the interface that I have right here is Focusrite Sapphire Pro 40. It's the interface that I have, and it's got a little bit of everything, so I felt that it was good to show you guys what an interface is. So what is an interface? It's a piece of external hardware that takes in a analog signal and puts out a digital signal. So you use this in recording and use it to record. This is where you plug in your mics and your guitar and your bass and anything else you have. So I'm going to be just going through all the knobs and inputs and all that fun stuff. And the terms on the interface are pretty universal. You're going to find them on lots of other interfaces in the way it's set up. So right here, I got two inputs in the front, and it says above it mic/line/instrument input. These connectors, they may look a little weird. They're starting to come in to newer interfaces. What it is, it's kind of a universal connector. You can plug in a 1/4 inch or a microphone. I like these a lot because it saves space and it makes things easier, because I can pick if I want a 1/4 inch cable or a microphone cable. I don't need to worry about some inputs having some and some inputs having the other. Over here there's a section and it's called mic 48V. 48V stands for 48 volts or phantom power. And some microphones, they require a charge because they have a capacitor. These are typically condenser microphones, which are used a lot for bright instruments and vocals. So the capacitor needs a charge, and when you hit that button on the top, channels 1 through 4 will have phantom power. They will send 48 volts down the microphone cable and charge the capacitor, so then the microphone works. The microphone will not work without 48 volts. You won't get a signal. So keep that in mind. Also keep in mind what you're sending 48 volts to. Although 48 volts cannot damage dynamic microphones, they will damage, not maybe, but will damage ribbon microphones, and ribbon microphones are quite expensive. So keep that in mind. And also keep in the back of your head, if you are setting up multiple microphones and you can't have the ability to turn phantom power on individual channels like me, I can only turn it on 1 through 4, 5 through 8, or nothing in between. I can't just pick like 2 or 3. So I would want to have all my condensers 1 through 4 or 5 through 8. So I have to keep that in the back of my head when I'm setting that up. The first two channels are a little different. They have 2 buttons under them, and this one says instrument. So like I said before, on 1 and 2 and the rest of the inputs, you can plug a 1/4 inch cable in, which is really typical for electronic instruments. You can plug that 1/4 inch cable in if you have a guitar or bass. And when you hit instrument, what happens is the gain knob, which is the preamp, it looks for a different impedance. And impedance is kind of like electrical resistance. Microphones have a very, very different impedance than a guitar or a bass. So what would happen if you plug a guitar in and you don't hit instrument? Well, you'll still get a signal, but because the preamp is not seeing the correct resistance, you may have to turn the gain up all the way to 10. And that's a lot of noise. And if you're in a professional setting, it's certainly unacceptable. So, and you will notice as soon as you hit the instrument button that you don't have to turn the gain knob as much, and you won't have as much noise. And then the button right next to it says pad, and that's a pretty universal term. Pad is just lowering the volume down. And what I mean by lowering the volume in a pad is that it's taking the volume before it hits the preamp. So if you have the knob all the way down at 0 and it's clipping, you need a pad. So then it's not clipping anymore because you can't bring the volume down past 0 on the gain knob. And so 3 through 8, these guys, they don't have these, so I can only plug in guitars in 1 and 2. These are just regular gain knobs, just turn up the volume. And over here is a metering section. You can see if your inputs are clipping or if they're too low, if you're not getting a signal at all. Typically when you're recording in a professional setting, you want the highest to be about -10 to -6, so I'd be looking for 2 or 3, kind of like hitting 3 once in a while, green dots there. If I'm at orange or red, then it's way too hot. I need to turn it down. So right underneath there's two green lights, and these are really important, and they can help you with troubleshooting if you're having issues. FW active means Firewire active. This particular interface uses Firewire 400. So when that green light is on, that means the computer sees that it's seeing that the interface is plugged in when they're talking back and forth. So when that green light's on, it's a good sign. And the one right next to it says locked. And locked means the sync clock is locked in. And a sync clock is an internal clock. It kind of keeps the computer and the interface kind of like on the same page. They're talking at the same time and keeps them together. So if it's not locked, you're going to have problems. It may not even work. So when I see both those green lights on, I know I'm all good to go. So over here is the main output for the monitor. Pretty straightforward. There's a volume, how loud you want, and a dim. Dim means it'll bring the volume down after the volume knob, and mute is mute. And keep in mind that this knob is connected to these two outputs, these white ones. And over here, headphone section, I can have 2 separate volume controls for each of those, and they're connected to the 1 and 2 output. So whatever you're going to hear out of the speakers, that's what's going to be going through here. But the thing is, you can change the volume of each of those. So over here, got SPDIF. SPDIF is kind of a digital audio format. You can use SPDIF to connect an external sync clock if you feel that a sync clock is necessary compared to the one that's built in. Or you can use SPDIF to kind of extend your interface, so I could have more ins and outs on this box if I had a SPDIF preamp, pretty much. And next to it, got a MIDI in and out. MIDI is typically used for keyboards. On pretty much every single keyboard that you'll see a MIDI out. And so you can plug that MIDI out into the MIDI in on here. And so you can have the MIDI signals go to your computer. So over here, just the Firewire. This is the main cable that is used to talk to the computer, between the computer and the interface. So that's absolutely necessary. And the second one is for whatever you'd like. It's literally just an extra port. You can plug anything in. You can plug a camera in and the computer would recognize it. So it's just an extra port for whatever you want to use. I used to plug my external hard drive in the second one, but I found that I was getting a lot of CPU errors, which is really common in Pro Tools. And I figured that's because my interface is doing its thing, which is converting and processing audio and also reading the audio files from my hard drive. So I thought it was a bad idea to do that. Optical, it's pretty similar to SPDIF, different number of channels that can go through it. You can extend your interface for more ins and outs, and you can plug in a sync clock. And over here are all the line outputs. 1 and 2, which are the white ones, that's the main output. Pro Tools and most of my software can figure out that 1 and 2 on my boxes, the left and right, route it for me automatically. And I can have these go to whatever I need to. If I have an external compressor or external EQ, it can go to that, and I can send it back into one of these inputs here. And yeah, the rest of this is just the inputs, just an extension from the front ones. And that's about it. So if you guys have any questions about interfaces, let me know. If you want me to make a video about recording or Pro Tools, let me know. I'd be happy to do that. So comment, rate, subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Thanks.